Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings from OutRight Action International, which is a 31-year-old organization that works at global, national, regional levels to eradicate persecution and inequality and violence faced by the LGBTQ community around the world. We have staff in over 10 countries, and we're headquartered in New York, and pretty much do our work by building the capacity of the movements, documenting human rights violations against LGBTIQ movement, and advocating for inclusion and equality. And we hold leaders accountable to ensure the protection of the rights of LGBTIQ persons everywhere. So my assignment this afternoon is to give a brief background of the work that we have been doing together with galck and other partners in eradication of conversion practices in Africa. So for OutRight, in keeping with its mandate, in 2019, it came into a partnership with 3 national partners: the Initiative for Equal Rights, based in Nigeria; galck, based in Kenya; and Access Chapter 2, based in South Africa, and commenced a project to end LGBTIQ conversion therapy, also known as conversion practices, which are efforts that aim to suppress or change a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, specifically in these 3 countries, Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. So the project was driven by 3 factors, really: the extent to which these practices actually occur at a global level, and also an inkling of how much they occur in Africa; the devastating impact that these harmful practices have on LGBTIQ lives; and the knowledge gap that existed that is specific to conversion practices in Africa. We found all this in our report, the OutRight report, called Harmful Treatment: The Global Research on So-Called Conversion Therapy, which we launched in 2019. So this report found that these harmful practices, first of all, take place everywhere. They range in their levels of physical and psychological abuse. And although conversion practices had been well documented in North America and in Australia and other Western countries, no in-depth study had been carried out in Africa that characterizes the nature and extent of these damaging and degrading practices on LGBTIQ lives. So we started the implementation of this project, which is funded by the Dutch government. So it took several months to conceptualize this project, and the primary focus was to build a body of knowledge and evidence on conversion practices in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, so that we could ensure that we had localized data on how these practices manifest themselves in these countries. So we have 3 reports now. It has taken us a little over 2 years to conclude this report. Of course, we were met with many challenges, one of them the COVID pandemic that stalled the project. But now the 3 research reports that have emerged from this project fill that knowledge gap by providing substantial data on conversion practices in Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa, and has contributed to the much needed evidence of harm to inform advocacy interventions and to put in place homegrown strategies to begin the process of change towards the eradication of these harmful practices. So given the varying contexts in the 3 countries, there were country-specific findings, but there were also some cross-cutting findings. So I'll just share with you very briefly some of the cross-cutting findings, and I'm sure galck will share their own national findings. But also the reports from Nigeria and South Africa will be made available online. So first, when we looked at the prevalence of conversion practices in these 3 countries, more than half of the LGBTIQ respondents from the 3 countries indicated that they had undergone some form of conversion therapy. In Nigeria, we had 49%, and in South Africa, we had 58%. With South Africa stating 47% of the respondents stated that they experienced these practices when they were under the age of 18 years. The cross-cutting forms of conversion practices identified in the 3 research include exorcisms, drinking of herbs, rape or some other form of sexual assault, prayers and laying of hands, and beatings. And it emerged that several forms of conversion practices were combined to elicit change. So these were either carried out simultaneously or over different periods of time. And most of the respondents in the surveys indicated that they had endured more than one form of conversion practices, either during the same period or it was sequenced over an extended period of time to ensure that change occurred. In Nigeria, 59% of the respondents stated that they had undergone rituals such as exorcisms, prayer, or laying of hands for healing. This, while 28% indicated that they had experienced physical deprivations, including fasting and use of medications. While in South Africa, 38% indicated that they had experienced similar practices and in the hands of family members, and 33% indicated the same practices in the hands of religious leaders. When we looked at the extent of these practices, we saw that it increases in intensity, from the moment of discovery, and usually escalates to more physically and psychologically aggressive practice. In South Africa, 49% of the respondents stated that they were forced into conversion practices. When we looked at the perpetrators and the instigators of these harmful practices, religious leaders, mental health practitioners, and family members were found to be the main perpetrators of these practices, while family members were found to be the initiators or the drivers of conversion practices. In South Africa, 49% of the respondents indicated that family members, including extended family, family friends, and people close to the family, were the main motivators of conversion practices, while in Nigeria, 45% said that the parents initiated conversion practices, and 47% reported that religious leaders had facilitated these conversion practice experiences. But of concern when looking at that particular element is that LGBTIQ plus individuals also actually sought out these practices on their own. And in particular, the figures are 30% in South Africa and 23% in Nigeria. The reality is that conversion practices has a negative impact on the physical and mental health of LGBTIQ survivors. The research has found that survivors of conversion practices suffer from depression, social anxiety, substance abuse, thoughts, and attempts at suicide, to mention but a few. I will share with you just a few stories from some of the survivors that we collected from the two countries. One of them stated that it happened when I was in high school, and I thought I was dirty and cursed. I believed I needed to change. I attempted suicide several times, and I thought I probably am not meant to be in this world. A second person stated, well, it affected me badly in a way that I hated myself and fell into a mini depression, always isolated myself, but now, like, I feel like I'm better, I am okay. And a third person, a father, stated that at first, my mom thought my sexuality was just a phase until she realized that's just who I was. She started ill-treating me, and I had no choice but to persevere as I was young and still under her care. I attempted suicide, and that's when I got introduced to the psychologist who made things clear for me. Those are just some of the stories that we captured from the reports that were launched. But you can actually access these reports online. The links will be made available, and you can read further. Now, moving on, we all have a role to play in condemning these harmful practices and amplifying the voice of survivors of conversion practices and putting in place appropriate measures or advocating towards putting in place appropriate measures against conversion practices. Now, governments need to meet their obligations to respect, of course, protect, and fulfill the human rights of every citizen. And they need to put in place legal and administrative measures to ensure the protection of LGBTIQ plus individuals from conversion therapy and broadly human rights violations. As we are aware, religious ideologies and cultural ideologies are the main drivers of conversion practices. Therefore, religious leaders need to come out and publicly condemn the use of conversion practices and dispel the harmful religious-based myths that drive negative attitudes and exclusion of LGBTQ people, and give the green light for conversion practices in churches and society at large. For civil society, we need to foster dialogue with critical stakeholders and raise awareness on the human rights violations that are connected to practices of conversion practices. Through the research, we found that a number of the respondents indicated that they had experienced conversion practices at the hands of medical and mental health practitioners. So it befalls the national medical and mental health associations to take appropriate steps to issue policies and regulations condemning the use of conversion practices and impose sanctions on practitioners of conversion practices and hold them accountable. Academia also has a role to play, and they can contribute to closing the knowledge gap on conversion practices in Africa by identifying areas of further research within the reports that we have launched and the report that will be launched today. For donors and those who are in the room, support is necessary for the LGBTQ movement at national level to ensure continuity and sustainability of this work. So as I conclude, I would like to acknowledge the great work that has been done by our national partners, Access Chapter 2 in South Africa, galck in Kenya, the Initiative for Equal Rights in Nigeria, and the LGBTQ movement in these 3 countries. I would also like to acknowledge the support from the entire OutRight team. Thank you to the Dutch government who has funded this groundbreaking work in Africa, and we hope that this partnership does continue. And of course, a heartfelt gratitude to the survivors of conversion practices who were instrumental and contributed and continue to contribute to the work that we are doing. And thank you to everybody else who has contributed and will contribute in the future. On behalf of OutRight, Access Chapter 2, Tears, I would like to congratulate galck on this milestone towards safeguarding the dignity and human rights of LGBTQ persons in Kenya. Thank you all and enjoy the evening.